The content of this episode may be unsuitable for some. Viewer discretion is advised.
Yeah. So let's start. The first question is, you're given $10 million, right? But from now on, once a week, a mime appears and beats the absolute shit out of you in front of strangers. Do you take the deal?
Yeah, I just have him whacked with the 10 million.
So screw the mime. Like, you're going to take the 10 and then you're just going to have him killed.
Well, I don't know if I'm going to have him killed, but if he's going to beat me down once, then I'm going to call the contacts that I have. I mean, we're Italian. Let's not bullshit ourselves. Like, we can make things happen.
So you're taking the 10 million.
I'm going to get a $1 million hitman to really do the job right, or beat down a fixer, like Ray Donovan, for instance. And then I still have, like, the other 9 million, and I can live life, and I don't have to get my jaw wired every week.
I need to get a bell for this, I just decided. And when people answer,
Bing.
either freaking, like they've answered it wrong, or
the
beep.
deep,
Yeah.
the real one, like at a hotel. Yeah.
Yeah.
Badass. Yeah.
And no matter how people answer, I'll just be random about how.
When you said that, all I saw was Mr. Mime from fucking Pokemon. I'm like, that little bitch isn't going to beat me.
Yeah. All right, so the second one. You're offered immortality, but only if every time you sneeze, someone you love swaps bodies with a nearby raccoon for 24 hours. Do you take it?
Of course. That would be entertaining. That would be content. I'd be like, I might have this many views a month on Substack. That shit's about to double. Come on, Kira, dance. Dance, you little trash panda.
You get I'm just imagining the looks you get from your panda family as they like walk around the corner again, like just staring at you like, damn it, 24 hours of this.
A little blonde hair raccoon strip there.
Yeah.
God, that would be sweet.
All right. So the last one, you have the ability to make every animal on Earth capable of communicating with humans. Mm-hmm. But the moment you do it, every single animal instantly and permanently hates you forever. Do you do it?
I might have to hear that one twice.
Okay.
The first part especially. Say that again.
So you have the capability of making every animal on Earth capable of communicating with humans. So animals and humans could communicate at last freely and openly.
Like talk.
But all animals will hate you in exchange. So you'll never have an animal friend the rest of your life.
No, fuck no. I'm not going down like that, because as soon as I go out there doing my nature photography, it's on. They're gonna like beat the shit out of me. I'm like, and I'm not cool like Michael Jackson. I can't get them all to dance and like they start and we come together like in the Beat It video. So hell no.
Okay.
I can't do that.
You're like,
I don't care if it's better for humanity. They'd love every other human, right? Though, like you'd
yeah,
be able to talk
or
to
they
them.
would have the choice to love them or not. You know, they'd be able to communicate and be like, "Ah, this guy's an asshole." But they just
like
for
us
sure
anyway.
you would like.
Humans are the worst species on the planet.
Some of them might like us. You never know, man.
Some might.
Some animals are probably pieces of shits too. I bet.
Think about the White House animals. They'd be like, "We're gonna take this motherfucker out
Right.
today. Let's go." So in that regard, maybe no. I'd have to say no. I like photographing animals. I like being able to share their stories through photos. I don't want them coming after me when I'm out there with my camera, like looking to give me a beatdown.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Well, we don't get to communicate with animals because of Jason. You guys heard it here.
I ruined it.
All right. Yeah, I like coming up with some of these weird questions.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I could see where, especially if it's somebody that you don't know well, you've chatted maybe online, you've invited them, they said, "Oh yeah, let's do this thing." But there's this nervous thing because you've never met them face to face. They're in your house, for God's sakes, your recording studio in your home. Yeah, that would be nerve-wracking. So that's a good idea.
Icebreakers, yeah.
I bet people don't answer them quite that fucking silly, though. I'm kind of a little weird guy sometimes.
Well, so far it's just been you and Daniel Clark last week.
Oh, well, he's funny. At least I'm sure he had some good answers then.
I think so, yeah. You'd have to listen to find out.
Yeah, I will. I realize how, since I've gotten on Substack and done like a daily podcast for 8 months in a row, I've noticed how other people are also doing it, just because, and maybe they were doing it before I was, who knows, but I just noticed how many writers that I know them for their writing are now also doing podcasts. And I'm like, okay, well, that's a cool idea. And I wish I had the time to listen to all of them.
Yeah.
I just
No, gosh, no. Man, no. Don't even.
kind of have to zip through and try to, or pick one a day, maybe one person a day to support by listening and,
Yeah, yeah.
and sharing. But
Like
it's
I
not
tuned in. I tuned into one the other day with Walter and Ben
Oh,
and
Walter
a
and
special
Ben,
hidden guest for their own identity protection or something. And I watched that one and stuff all the way through, sitting there while I was working and such. But
were they talking movies? Is that what?
yeah, mostly I think movies and
That's their thing. It seems like they pick
not
a
really
movie
much politics. I think maybe a little was mentioned, but not too much. So yeah, it was good though. I mean, it was enjoyable enough to keep me like engaged to watch it. You know, I didn't
Yeah.
leave or whatever. You know, and so
The last one I watched was Mary Trump. Actually, I watched hers. Have you seen any of hers?
mm-mm,
You know, Mary Trump and what she's all about.
mm-mm,
Okay, so she's Donald's niece.
mm-hmm.
She's like a psychologist or was, and now she does I think a daily one or pretty close to it, just ripping him apart.
Okay, so I've seen her around and stuff. I just
Yeah.
there's a lot of Trumps now out there in the world. A lot of people with that last name that I'd never heard of before.
Huh.
So it's like keeping track of a whole new family, you know. And
Yeah, that's funny.
I just got the Kardashians figured out, you know.
You finally caught up to them. You
Finally,
kept up
yeah,
with,
yeah. I finally,
You kept up to them, and now you got Trump in it. And you're
I
like,
finally
"Fuck."
caught up to be able to keep up, and now I'm falling behind because the Trumps are around. Keeping up with the Trumps is hard.
That's a tough choice. Which one do you follow daily?
Neither. Fucking neither.
That's where I was going with that. But you said it, so you heard it from Kenyon, y'all.
Yeah, no, I don't fucking follow either of those families. I have seen her stuff pop up though and stuff, and I saw one article I read about her growing up with Trump or something at like holidays or something like that, or something when she was younger or something. I think.
Well, someone asked on there that was funny because they said, "Well, what's up with your cousin Don Jr.?" Because he had just criticized Biden's cancer announcement and said,
I
maybe
saw
it's-
that. He's
Okay.
such a fucking idiot, dude.
Well, she said, "Well, here's what it is. He's never worked an honest day in his life.
Yeah.
Because he was born into wealth. He's trying to desperately get Daddy's approval, which he can't because Daddy was trying to do that with Fred.
Yeah.
And then something else. I forget what the third one was, but I was laughing.
Yeah.
She hates him as much as like I do. So hence the automatic appeal of tuning in. And I also like to just chat with the people that are watching. And she's on YouTube, so she gets a donation and she'll read the question if it's a paid donation, I think. So I haven't done a paid one. I don't even know how because I'm not on YouTube like per se.
Yeah.
But I just get in there and I try to say some funny shit about Trump.
Yeah.
And then the people listening to her but reading the comments also engage. And I'm like, hey, maybe I'll get a few new subscribers. Who knows?
Yeah, yeah.
But I like what she does though, because obviously, you know, I think that guy's a piece of shit. So it's like, all right, anybody that doesn't like him. And her book is really good. Julia and Maya have both read her book. She has a best-selling book of some, I forget the name, but just look up Mary Trump book and there
Yeah,
you go.
yeah, yeah. My to read list for books grows with pretty much every conversation I have these days. It seems like.
Oh, yeah?
There are a lot of good books out there. A lot of good books. The most recent one I read was Sunrise on the Reaping, which is a Hunger Games book. The most
Oh.
recent Hunger Games book.
Oh.
It was really good. Yeah, it was really
Well,
good. I
that's
did a
pretty
review.
popular
on it.
series. Yeah, I can
Yeah.
imagine the new one would be a big deal.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you connect with, like, send a message yet, or have any communication with Jade Jesser?
No,
buddy?
I did add them. I did add them on Substack. Follow them and stuff, or
Okay.
subscribe even. I think.
Yeah, he's written a couple sci-fi books.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that's what his main thing is, besides being also
And
a
he's more
stand-up.
local too, right?
Yeah, he lives here.
Yeah.
And he would come on here, I'm sure. We've done about 3 different videos on Substack, just like split screens, not together like this, but like, you know, where you can talk on
Yeah.
from each of your households.
Right.
Anyway, he's a funny guy. He does stand-up comedy. He does some acting.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he does acting. Have you heard of Stephen King's $1 movies or $5 movies thing? It's where he'll like let you develop one of his short stories for like nothing, just a token amount. Jade's been in one of those before.
Oh, cool.
And he's done some stand-up stuff. Yeah, he's a good guy, and he has like a healthy hatred for what's going on in the country right now too. So he's just a cool guy. But so he's written 2 books. So if you like books, tell him, like, if you like sci-fi at all, you would definitely
I love
probably
sci-fi.
dig his
Yeah.
books. Sci-fi is not my genre of. My likes it more than I do for sure. But I'm sure Jade's books are just terrific.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he'd come here. I bet he would.
Yeah. I had a I read a book a long time ago by an author, Set Sights, and he's English. Tried to get him on, but he said no. Someday maybe. But some authors are shy. You know, some writers are some. You have some that are boisterous, like George R. R. Martin. Like he's a very boisterous, not shy at all author. But then you have some out there that are like pretty much all the other authors are pretty shy. Like you don't hear much about them because they really don't do much because they're kind of just, you know, I'm shy. God, that's the only word I can say, but I'm not going to keep on repeating it. So
Maybe they just get all the words they have out into their work or something.
Yeah,
so they're
something,
probably drained at that point. And,
yeah,
or just like, you know, camera shy. Some people don't like being in front of cameras per se. I like the audio format myself for the daily thing that I do, but it's also cool to do these occasional like videos or maybe once every week or two doing a Substack live. Have you done a live yet for your audience? Okay.
No.
It's just you had to run it through your phone. I don't think there's a way that you can do it.
I did find a way to do it on the computer the other day. I think.
Oh, did they add the capability then?
I think so. Yeah, I thought I saw it. I wasn't sure, but like
Maybe they've changed it then.
I don't know for
'Cause I
sure.
put mine
Do
on
not quote me on that.
I have to put mine on this like stick that you can like bend in any position. So I sit in bed here. This is on the edge of my computer thing. I have the computer up just so I can, you know, keep track of what's going on and chit chat. Like just if it's a solo one, I can actually interact with the people as so that they can type words, you know, like comments to you.
Yeah.
So you can do a Q&A with your whole audience, you know.
Right.
If it's two people at once, and we've even done a 3-person one, me and Jade and Robin. So it's a split screen thing. It's harder to keep track of the questions because you're talking to another person. So it'd be like if you and I were talking and then there was like things popping up and we're trying to watch this but also still talk to each other.
Yeah.
That's
It
harder.
can be hard. It can be difficult. Yeah.
But you'll get a good amount of people on there. I've had like up to 600 some people join at one point. And it counts it in the way that anybody that logs in and views it even for a minute or two is counted once.
Right.
So by the end, you have a running total of the total people that have watched it.
Gotcha.
And usually they're about, for me, and I have a pretty good audience, 200 to 300, 400 people, and then up to 500 or 600 I've had in there at once. Then you have the option to turn it into a post, like what we have done with our videos. Remember how after the fact we would type a quick little write-up?
Yeah.
And then, so you can do that with that too.
Right.
And that brings in more people. They can't see the comments unless it's live. So when they watch it later after the fact, then there's no comments on there. It's just you talking to your audience, basically, or the other person you're on there with. But yeah, the Substack lives are pretty cool. And it's what Mary Trump does on hers and like a lot of different people.
Yeah.
What's his name? Trump's lawyer, Michael Cohen. He just did a live with JoJo from Jers. She's the one that I'm a big fan of.
Yeah.
Her writing's like mine. It's like very anti-Trump, but also like a lot of cursing, a lot of insult stuff, and it's funny. It's like very funny, and she's like in a sad mood now because she met Biden personally, you know, at the White House, and it was hard for her to hear the diagnosis and stuff because it's just a sad thing, man. Cancer sucks.
Yeah, cancer sucks. Period. Yeah, I know. Even I think even Trump sent out sympathy to Trump himself, not his son though.
I was gonna say I don't think it was Trump himself.
Well, his account did, I think.
His account did.
Yeah, his account. Yeah,
But
I don't think it was Trump himself.
It wasn't all caps.
But I don't know who runs his account. Like, if anybody else helps, or if just he's the only one that does it, I have no idea.
If
man.
there were no spelling and grammar errors, like there wasn't, and no caps lock, that motherfucker didn't write that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying maybe he has a heart in there somewhere where he's like, dude, that does suck.
Yeah.
But I doubt he wrote that. It just doesn't seem like his style. Now, John Jr., though, took it to dick level 7.
Yeah.
You know, and said, well, how do we know this isn't...
He's just so stupid, dude. It just...
That dude's just a fucking loss.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, that kid's just one of those kids that just rubs me the wrong way. It's come off as, like, the greasy... I don't know, like... The greasy kid in the movies back in the day, like the kids' movies, you know, that was like the rich one with the greasy slicked back hair, like the Draco Malfoy types, you know?
Malfoy.
Like that's what he comes off as.
Malfoy,
yeah, he is, yeah.
Malfoy with darker hair.
And like Trump doesn't even seem to like him that much, so I'm not like probably hurting his dad's feelings too much.
I don't think Trump knows how to love people at all. I just have to judge it by knowing what I know about his family and his upbringing. When you're raised by billionaires that are, you know, whatever Fred was, fill in the blank, greedy, ruthless, racist. How could you have love for your family when you're so focused on work, and it just so part of me almost, and I say almost, tiny part of me almost feels bad for Trump, like being raised that way, because he just had no shot at a normal life. But there are people that were raised by people like that that have become exceptional human beings. It's kind of like when you're abused as a child. You can either go one of two ways. You can follow that pattern of abuse, which is what happens most of the time, or you can totally go the complete opposite way and raise your kids differently than that.
Well, it's hard. That's
Yeah,
hard. Yes,
it is.
that's hard. And I've noticed something over the last few years. These elitist groups. Trump's like one of them, and then Biden and Obama are part of another different group, and stuff, and they all hang out and get along. But they also are very interchangeable at times. Like the key figures won't be interchangeable. Like you won't see all of a sudden Obama go hang out with Trump and start kicking it on the green all the time, But pretty much all the members of their group can swap back and forth. Like it's almost like NFL, but for elites, like, all right, we'll trade you this guy for this guy for this guy. Now they're going to talk crap about Trump, but we're going to get your guys over here and they're going to be on our side, right? And it's like
the all-stars in a league, kind of.
the one thing I'm not seeing though is I'm not seeing any of them that are blatantly abusing power. I'm not seeing any of them at all brought down. Any of them. Like, whether or not Trump was guilty of the actions he committed, he was convicted in a court, but what is happening with that? Nothing.
Yeah.
And so like they're playing on a different level again, and that's where my things we have to start talking about this, because we the people are losing all of the power again. Yeah. And it's happening right in front of us while we think we are having a say and an opinion and an input by arguing online about it.
Wow.
But that's not input, that's just arguing.
Yeah.
Input will be standing up and doing something to fight the tyranny that we're seeing from power, just power in general.
Well, and in the last 10 years, it's gotten crazy as far as most people would say we are not where we once were. Mm-hmm. We don't have the leader of both sides, both political parties. We don't have them at least talking respectfully other than during presidential debates. Now it's just like, fuck you, no fuck you, you orange piece of shit, you liberal commie,
Right.
So in the last 10 years, and I fault Trump for this and then everybody that's following his lead, it's gotten angry and not productive. It's just gotten way worse. Whereas before, you had Obama talking to Romney, but they talked to each other like adults during debates or whatever. You know what I mean? It's never... unless we go back to the 17 or 1800s, which none of us were around for, we can only judge it by what we read in history books, I suppose, or
I guess it was pretty bad in the 60s and 70s. It was pretty, the political landscape, debates and stuff were pretty attacky and,
people were using the N-word a lot back then on one side.
You never know if they were calling each other that stuff or what they were calling each other, because none of the debates weren't recorded all the time in small areas and stuff like they are now. So we don't know how heated they get, but we do know that the founding fathers would get in fist fights over their opinions before signing the Declaration and all that.
There was a couple duels and shit.
Exactly.
People murdering someone on the Senate floor or something.
Right. Exactly. The point is to come together. To make sure that the tyrant, which was England at the time,
their country,
gets put in place and the people regain power. And so that's kind of, I think, where we're at again, is instead of being so divided as a people, we need to realize that, one way or the other, no matter who you are, there's a power who's trying to play you. Mm-hmm. And so if we stop letting them and we instead unite as people and fight against all of them, we will see them change their tune really quick.
What do you think it would take, though? We've seen boycotts. We've seen Tesla lose a fuck ton of money lately. What would it take for people to drop the petty bullshit, the stuff they want us to do, fight each other, rather than storm the White House?
We have to start encouraging people to fight each other less and talk more. And that's really, really hard, because you have people at this point, it's getting harder and it'll continue to get harder. And I see the strategy that this is why it'll continue to get harder, is because as it gets harder for people to communicate with those with opposing views, block, right? Mm-hmm. The division will increase. Instead, we have to stop before it's too late and be like, all right, instead of being like, you commie libtard piece of shit, or, you racist redneck motherfucker, we have to stop for a minute and be like, But why? That's it. Why do you believe this? Okay, explain it to me so I can understand. And you start to see that, like, initially you'll get people will almost retaliate with more anger than they had before. Because now you're all of a sudden calm and rational. And you're making them feel like they're crazy or something for their reaction and their over the top approach to the situation. So you'll see them respond with a boof, right? Of
A knee-jerk
negativity,
reaction.
right?
Yeah.
But then you see, like, as you're listening and explaining and you just keep asking just mild questions, over time you'll see that they calm down and they start simply explaining. And then a few times I've now been able to get people to admit, okay, well, I don't really hate anybody and I don't really want anybody hurt and I don't really want these things to actually happen. I just feel that, this is going to happen if we don't do something about it. So it comes down to that thing, which is always fear. I fear for, my grandkids. I fear for, and it's always related to your family. And that's the most powerful way to get emotion
How's
invoked.
it going to affect me directly and my family and my loved ones?
Well, and that's a lot of your emotion. That's a lot of your support for the LGBTQ is because you have family that's in it and you feel very accepting of your family because you're a good dad.
Well, and I'd say more so for sure. But before I had a daughter, or even before I knew she was, gay, she came out right before she turned 13. So all the years prior to that, before she was even born, I was always like, hey, why are people so shitty towards gay people?
Right.
About the time I left the church, like at age 21, I was like, it's not, first off, you're taught that you're not supposed to judge. That's supposed to be up to God, right?
Right.
So people still judge people constantly and like, oh, you're a sinner. You're going to hell. You're,
Right,
a pedophile or a groomer.
Right.
I didn't buy into any of that after I left the church. I'm just like, that didn't make any sense. Like,
Mm-hmm.
once I educated myself and got to know some people
Yeah.
that were gay
Yeah.
and that were in the community, I was like, these are fun people.
Yeah.
Nobody's grabbing my ass. Like, that's like what most guys, like, oh, they're going to try to hit on me. Well, who gives a fuck? Like, if they hit on you, it's because they think you might also be gay too. I don't think they're doing it to piss you off,
Right.
to irritate you, you know?
Right.
So I think being part of the community, yes, having a daughter that's gay, that just amplified the support more. I went to my first Pride events where I hadn't gone before because I didn't have any close friends that were gay. I was supportive, but I just didn't know anybody, personally. So I get what you're saying, but also part of it is even before that, I was, but not everybody's like that. They're drilled into their head to be homophobic. They were raised in little redneck tiny towns where everybody hates everybody that isn't whatever they're like.
Well, and a lot of times they don't. From where I grew up, in the perspective of like the small town, is a lot of those individuals hate these people, but they don't even know these people. So they don't really hate anyone. They just hate this ideology that, is presented to them in a way that's scary. It's not like the news just all of a sudden woke up with Trump one day and was like, oh, let's start just preaching fear. Just start spreading just fear and hate and all this, agenda to sell articles. No, that's not new, and so their whole lives you have these, conservative communities that are taught, to, praise God, you go to work, you do your job, you take care of your family.
Help your neighbor.
And they found immense success in that process, and so they see this, outside influence to them, in their minds, and they're like, well, we can't, that's a threat to this way of life. Well, it's not a threat to it.
It's just different.
And that's the thing is, there's this thing people believe right now, which I believe is completely false, to where if you are one culture and you take on another culture, that culture will wipe yours out. Well, it can. That has happened, but not really truly. Like, they absorb each other is what ends up happening. They become one culture, and we've seen this countless times throughout history.
Yeah.
They don't get wiped out ever. They get intertwined and intermixed and influenced, and, you see the influence forever. For the fact that, like, you see in our building structures in Washington have very Grecian style architecture. We still have the culture of the Greeks with us today. We have the culture of the Romans with us in our politics, as with the Greeks as well. And so those cultures never died. They just changed, absorbed, and evolved and spread.
Yeah, involved. Yeah, that's a good word, evolved. I like that one.
So no culture should be afraid, oh my gosh, we're all going to die out if this other culture gets stronger. No, the goal is to meld and become better because, like in biology, the more variance you have in the genetic availability around, the stronger the species gets. Meaning, don't fuck your cousin, because you'll create dumb babies. But if you go fuck someone on the other side of the world who has no genetic similarities to you, you're going to make good, strong, healthy human beings.
Yeah, there will be defects.
Exactly.
Whatever. Yeah.
So I've never understood those fears of intertwining cultures.
Well,
it's weird, perpetuated now worse.
And the expression, like, people are afraid of what they don't know about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
I don't get that. So as a somewhat educated person with a decent intellect, I've always loved to learn about as much as I can. I know you're a big person on learning.
Mm-hmm.
But, so I had never been around Muslim people before. When I worked for Foot Locker back in Twin Falls, Idaho, rednecky, little small place.
Yep.
We had two guys that worked for we had two stores in the mall, and they worked at each of the stores, both of them, like they intertwined at the two stores. From Bosnia.
Yeah.
Escaped the war. Muslim.
Yeah.
And they were just like good dudes, Like I remember inviting Damir over and you're like, hey, come play FIFA 98 because he played on the national team over there, I guess, at some point, or maybe it was the junior team. And he's like, I'm going to kick your ass. He was just the funniest guy. Like, he was so funny.
Yeah.
And we just had nothing but a good time. That was my first experience around people that weren't Christian or at least non-religious. They were Muslim. But did I worry about anything? Did I'm like, oh shit, I hope he doesn't blow my house up, or what? Fill in the blank of whatever stereotype that ignorant people use for those kind of people. I'm like, no, I just want him to come over and have some food and play some games, man. When I was in grade school, I had all friends of all. It was like the United Benetton of colors. I had black friends, I had Mexican friends, Asian friends, kids that turned out to be gay later in life. Which back then I was very young, naive, and in church. I didn't see the signs, but I'm like looking back, I'm like, course he was gay. Like, he hated PE. He screamed like a girl if the ball was thrown at him. And he was just funny and flamboyant. And then later I find him on Facebook and he's out as a gay man. I'm like, I should have seen that, but I didn't have the life experience to recognize. And you don't always have signs,
Yeah.
But in a couple those regards, I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. That tracks.
Yeah.
And they were just my friends. I didn't give a fuck if they were gay or straight or yellow, brown, black, whatever.
Right.
But how come some people are automatically predisposed to being afraid of learning, afraid of having someone bring over a casserole from Ethiopia if they're from the country,
Yeah.
Why are people so stuck in their
I think it's
shit?
taught. I think it's taught, honestly. Like, for instance, my mom taught me to fear strangers, period. Just fear strangers, which is a good thing to teach a kid in general.
Right.
But you can't take it too far because you shouldn't fear all strangers.
Right.
You should just be cautious of people you don't know in the sense that, you shouldn't let someone you don't know come into your house and, sleep in the room next to you with your door unlocked.
Right. Or give you a ride home from school.
Exactly.
When you're supposed to be on the bus.
Yeah, or some stranger just take your kids. Oh, here's my, 3 toddlers, strange man I've never met before. Will you take them in your van to my home?
Yeah.
That's just dumb, you
Yeah.
know? But, teaching someone to be too afraid of strangers gives them an anxiety of people, and that's exactly
Right.
she is that way. She does have a general anxiety of people, and so she, for a long time taught me, but I've been curious my whole life. So my curiosity has always, not always, but a lot of times outweighed my fucking fear, period.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I've had those situations too. I mean, I grew up in a very only, white town, for most of, my childhood. And then as I got older, I moved more to the reservation, which then there were, natives and, Hispanic individuals because of the farms and stuff. So then it got, a little bit more colorful, so to speak.
Yeah, of course.
You
learn about different cultures and how people live versus how you live.
Exactly. And so I started to get, a better, idea of the differences, and I noticed that there are a little bit of a difference between
Sure.
cultures and stuff,
Absolutely.
and not that made it wrong. That's when I was first starting to observe that.
Yeah.
And as I moved to Boise and I started to make friends in the Treasure Valley, I inevitably did make friends with a group of Muslim college students while I was in school. And I went over and we all sat in a circle one day just talking and eating fucking dates and drinking a really, like, it's like a thick coffee, an Arabic coffee.
Oh, huh.
And it was really, really fucking good. And we did that a few times. And they were just good human beings.
Yeah.
And so that's when, like, I started more so, I'd always been explorative, but then, like, I really was, like, certain, and just this last Mother's Day, we went to the zoo, right? And I got reminded of this again, and it was a great experience. And I was reminded of it in the most obvious place you can find it, and that's in people's kids and their interactions with their children. At the zoo that day, I saw a Russian family. Specifically, I remember keeping this in mind, and family from India, and a white family. They had at different times, I just saw them throughout the time there, and they had toddlers. Each of them had toddlers that was about the same age, and in different occasions, those toddlers were doing what toddlers were doing, and they were running away from a parent that was chasing behind them, like, come here, trying to get them, before they ran into human traffic.
They're like, no.
Right, exactly. All three of those children and all three of those parents were expressing love towards their children. And then, like, with the Russian, like, family, like, and I could tell because of the language, I could hear them speaking Russian. And with the Indians, I knew they were Indians because I could hear them speaking Hindi.
Okay.
So, I don't just assume. Like, I know because I can recognize the languages. I might not speak them, but I can recognize them. So,
you're pretty confident that.
I'm pretty confident.
Yeah.
The Russian mom was watching the dad chase the toddler, and she was smiling this huge smile of love. And it was like, in that moment, I was like, I put all three of the interactions together, and I was like, when it comes to our kids and how much we care about them and our families, there is no fucking difference between us.
Yeah.
Zero difference. When it comes down to it, we want the children we create to have a healthy and safe world for them to grow up in. The problem just simply arises in our translations or, interpretations rather, of what that good, healthy world is. That's really where it starts to be. And we call it politics and we call it, economy, and we call it all this stuff, but it's really all about, like, how am I going to take care of my family? And are they going to be safe and healthy?
Yeah, most people don't have kids to be like, I don't give a shit, whatever.
Or at least they don't have family, they have someone that they care about at some point, right? Usually, hopefully.
Yeah, you want what's best. You want your kid to be safe. You don't want to raise a total asshole. You don't, most people discipline their kids. Some go about it the wrong way. Some go about it the right way. Some are in the middle. We all make mistakes as human beings. We can't, even the most perfect parent who had the easiest time raising their kids can still count on one or two hands how many times they've fucked up and done something regrettable.
Well, even perfect parents who raise really good kids in, private special schools with the tutors and the travel and all that can still raise literal serial killers. We've seen it, you know what I mean? And so there is no perfect recipe. You just have to put in the work and hope for the best.
Well, and that's because of the nature versus nurture thing too. Some people, I feel like, honestly, are just born to be shitheads.
Yeah.
And some become that way because their parents didn't do enough for them or
Right.
went overboard on them. I've said this many times. I think I've said it to you before. The whole, like, 1 out of 2. I used to say that to my kids when they were growing up. 1 out of 2, meaning every other person you meet is probably a douchebag on the sly, doesn't have your best interests in mind.
Yeah.
No, that sounds paranoid, but I really believe that. I think statistically, we walk down the street and there's 10 people on each side of us. 10 of those people are going to be pretty damn good people that you could be homies with and have a good, and 10 of them are going to be assholes or sneaky and see what they can get from you.
Yeah.
And you got to just, give everybody the opportunity to prove themselves, but don't automatically assume everybody's your best friend.
Right, yeah.
So I think that transcends race, religion, or anything. There's assholes that are white, black, brown, yellow, red. Good people are good people because they're people, not because they're American or Russian or,
Yeah, exactly. And trash is trash, too. No matter what part of the world you're from, if you're a human being who is just 100% out for what you can get, and you don't literally care who you physically step on, then you're probably a trash human, and I don't care where you're from, and we're probably not going to get along. And unfortunately, when those types of people rise to the top, which they often do because they're willing to step on so many people,
Oh, sure.
they start to take over. And you see what's happening now, where people in power can pretty much do what they want. Corporations can poison entire villages in East Africa and get away with it because they have lawyers that'll keep them from having to even see
justice. Yeah.
No jail time for any of these things. You can literally lead to the deaths of thousands of people because your product was chemically hazardous and you knew. And you're not going to see a day in jail. Not a fucking day. No. And so we are seeing a problem with elites, period, and Bernie Sanders is always talking, oh, it's an oligarchy, you gotta watch out for the oligarchy, and I love Bernie, but I think oligarchy is an oversimplification for what we're seeing. Oligarchy is a less complicated problem than what we're fucking seeing. Oligarchy is cut and dry, what it is. Done.
Well, he's talking on the macro level, and we need one-on-one, you and me sitting at a table, micro level.
Yeah.
We need more of that than this macro view of, like, how everything's just the way it is. Like, well, okay, well, that's neat, but how do we break it down to the one-on-one, the two-on-twos, the 10 people in a room?
Yeah, exactly. How do you, and here's the thing is, I think you're right. I think, 1 out of 2 people tends to be a prick, or moody or just not like you. But a lot of times that could be based on their fear of strangers themselves. It could be based on their fear of poverty, of falling behind on bills or whatever. It could be just that they're stressed. Someone just passed away. So I would say, like, if you were to have the ability to get to know those people, you might find that maybe only 1 out of every 4 people are actually pieces of shits.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like, that's where I'm at right now is I am trying to prove more and more that people aren't, so horrible that we shouldn't talk to them, and even Ryan Spoon, the last time he was on, said that, like, people on the left that are extreme who, like, do the crazy things, like tattoo fuck Trump on their chest or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, those are easy for him to combat, because he can post about it and, be like, oh, whiny libtard, whatever, you know what I mean? But people in the middle, he has no ability to fight, because there's no, what do you throw at the middle? The only thing you can really do is try to ignore him, but I'm too loud to ignore. I'm going to eventually get my word out as I'm proving, And so I think that it's time. The people in power don't represent the regular people. And I've been saying that for a few months now online. Donald Trump does not represent your neighbor who even voted for Trump. Now, he did vote for Trump, right? And he might be a piece of shit. I'm not saying he isn't. But there is also a possibility that he's a good guy who, at the end of the day, just loves his family and wants the same things you do, them to be happy and successful in life.
Yeah, he could be worried that the MS-13 gangs really are out there and might come kicking in his door in Idaho.
They really are afraid. They really are afraid. I can tell. Like, they're not making up the fear.
Yeah.
They worry about this.
And and I've said this a long time too, I said not every Trump supporter is racist, but the ones that have voted for him have decided that it's not off the table to vote for Trump, even if I think he is racist.
Right.
I think he'll be tough on crime, because I think he'll save me on taxes. Yeah, fill in the blank, or I think he'll reduce pricing on stuff. But they really do believe that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of them. I don't think every Trump supporter in the world is just a garbage, soulless human being.
Right.
I really don't. And I have family members that I know are lovely people that, sure, they vote against the best interests of my diverse family, my mixed race children and bride and my gay daughter, but they're doing it because they think that's the pathway to a stronger America, a safer America, put more in your pocket for your family America, even if it's not true.
Yeah.
They've been fooled. They've been sold a bill of goods that obviously didn't deliver.
Yeah.
But they're nice to you. I hypothesize that if you invited the first 100 people walking through the zoo, hey, come to my house, free barbecue. I'm giving everybody a $100 bill when they come in.
Yeah.
Okay, sweet, let's do it. So complete randos, people you don't know.
Right.
The only catch is to get the $100 bill is we cannot talk about 2 things the entire time you're here.
Right.
Everything else, let's talk about it.
Right.
Or get to know each other.
Right.
But we can't talk politics. We can't talk religion.
Right.
Those two are off the table.
Completely 100% off. You mention it, you're disqualified. You'll
Take
be
your
asked to
$100
leave.
bill and I
Yep.
shred it.
Yeah. Yep.
Or I put it in my pocket. That's more.
People are going to get along, I think.
Well, think about it. Like, when's the last time you went to a social setting where you didn't know very many people there other than the people you came with, maybe the one person invited you? I've been to several of those barbecues in the last decade, right? Mm-hmm. And almost nobody talks about politics these days in a face-to-face setting.
Yeah.
If you know the people that you know, so like when we have family over to our house for something and we know that there's nobody there that supports Trump. That's like a big MAGA person.
Right.
All right, we might start talking politics because we all know we agree.
Right.
It's comfortable. You're not worried about pissing somebody off, hurting someone's feelings, getting in a fist fight, whatever the case.
Right.
But when you go to your last barbecue that you went to where you knew Kimberly and you knew maybe who invited you and that's about it.
Right.
How many people were sitting there like talking about politics and religion?
Right.
Not very many, because
No,
our parents
no.
taught us don't talk. If you care about a relationship with someone or getting to know
Yeah.
a new friend, don't talk about two things,
Yeah.
religion or politics.
Right.
Which is funny. But we need to talk about the politics because it's important to come to an understanding, right?
Right.
So it's drilled in our head not to do that, but we need to do that too.
Right.
So that's kind of fucked up.
Right. And that's where, like, people, who are willing and wanting to, host the conversation, need to, and there are a few other people out there that are doing similar things to this. I've found them. And there's one group in DC who's doing this exact same thing and even has the name Meridian in their name.
Oh, neat.
So, I mean, there are people that are thinking the same thing I'm thinking. It's just,
ground.
we're also a very competitive fucking species, though. True. So we want to be the first one there to the finish line of being the best of the middle. You know what I mean?
I want to rise to the top. Yeah.
I'm the very best at balance. Look at me. And that's me, though. Like, I'm starting to look at it as, like, it is this awesome, amazing idea, but I also need to remember to laugh at it,
Yeah.
because life should kind of be joked about, even, something
everything
serious.
should be,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
I swear to God, I've always believed that ever since Jerry Seinfeld and Ricky Gervais were talking about the Holocaust on that show. And Ricky was like, God, why didn't you? Well, I guess you had to be there. They start laughing.
Yeah.
Then they get like, people get pissed when you joke about cancer or the Holocaust and this and that. And it's like, I get it. Like, it's going to hit somebody wrong.
Yeah.
Like, someone died in a DUI at Margaret Cho's show, and she made a DUI joke. And the lady got pissed and got loud and in her face and stuff. Well, you can't account for every person in an audience's personal thing. I get that on mine. I have a lot of people following my shit. But once in a while, someone's like, well, you can't joke about that. I'm like, bullshit, I can't, but tell me why I shouldn't, I guess. Let's talk about this. And if they're obnoxious about it, then I'm like, fine.
Yeah.
Don't follow my shit then. Here, I'll make it easy, block.
Yeah.
But if they're like, well, this happened to me, and then I'm like, okay, well, how could I have known that?
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to minimize your pain. I'm just playing the percentages of that. I can think of a funny angle about anything. Pretty much,
yeah, exactly.
I
Yeah.
love humor like you do. So
yeah,
you can always joke about everything, but you're going to offend somebody. But part of it is you have to realize, well, you can't make everybody happy. I don't try to turn everybody that reads my shit into a fan. I just cater to my crowd.
Yeah.
And that's
that's kind of what you have to do in life to be happy, I think, to some degree. The conversation's important, but at the end of the day, you can't be surrounded by people that suck. If you don't agree and you're just going to argue all the time, who the fuck wants that all day, every day? That's not fun.
No.
That makes even the strongest human beings start to just deteriorate when their life is just about conflict. You know what I mean? And so it's funny that you mentioned, like, the random people who just, like, seem to just pop out of nowhere and say the darndest things. I had a person on just yesterday. I think their name was Connie. So if it was Connie, and I go find it, and that was your name, I'm going to be tagging you in this. They commented on, because you've seen a couple of my Substack posts and stuff that have done well, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
And so
you like to ask a question, and then you let everybody else start talking, and you get hundreds of reactions, I've noticed.
Yeah. I like to get the conversation going, and I'm getting better at initiating it and stuff. And this lady, she comments, and she's like, how about you state your opinion instead of just talking about other people's? And I'm like, well, surely, miss, you've noticed that I both write and have a podcast. My opinions are fucking out there. It was my thought. I laughed so hard at that, though.
Yeah, keep scrolling.
When I first read that, I freaking just laughed. I'm like, oh my God, that is the most ridiculous thing. How, either you're ancient and so you're just figuring out how to use the internet still.
First day on the internet.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Or you're very lazy and you just couldn't go cruise through my profile to just the top. That's all you had to do is click on my name, look at the top where it says I write and have podcasts. That's it. And you should have known. Your opinion's got to be in there fucking somewhere.
People seem to, I'm baffled sometimes, and I love the people I have on there. But once in a while, you'll just get somebody, and you're like, is this your first day on the internet? What the fuck?
What the hell is that?
But I try not to, I chuckle, and then I'm like, all right, well, don't judge. Like, just think about it for a minute. Maybe this, maybe that, maybe education level. Maybe they're high off their ass. Maybe they're
maybe they're high
drunk.
off their ass.
I don't know the thing. So I'll usually try to clarify, and I'll say something like, well, actually, look at my description, like you said. Look at my description of what my Substack's about. That's one clue. Or read any of the last 3 or 4 articles from the past 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
You'll get an idea.
Yeah, exactly.
So be overly nice, and then if they keep going like vicious, then you're like, all right, well, they're looking for a fight.
Yeah,
And obviously, it's not about me; it's about them.
Yeah, I didn't reply with any cuss words or anything. Even I just literally did
You're
say,
a better man than I am.
Yeah.
Fuck you then.
Well, I'm not always. There are times like I don't think I cuss or insult like that anymore. I'll say like you're being silly and stuff to people, and that seems to piss them off as it is. And then I feel bad later. I'm like, gosh darn it, I said they're being silly, and I'm like, what am I turning into? Like the old
jerky
Kenyon,
boys.
Yeah,
You're silly.
yeah. There was that might be part of it too.
It could be. We all have our influences growing up.
It's the big gay Al in my head being like, oh my god, silly goose,
Silly buns.
Yeah.
God, that
So,
was funny.
yeah,
I love
so-
Big Al.
Yeah, and but people like that are, I mean, it happens, but I mean, on a couple of those posts that have done really, really well, it's overwhelmingly positive.
Yeah.
And I love seeing that.
Big time.
I love
Focus
seeing
on
like
that.
all the support of people and all the, okay, we've got your back, sister, and oh, that's a great family, and just, those types of comments I love. I'm just sitting there hearting all day long because I'm like, keep those types of fucking comments coming.
Yeah, keep those people in your orbit and stuff. And one thing I can tell you after doing this for 10 months and building it to a level where it is as at the moment, it'll never be as hard as the earliest days. So like whatever you were at, wherever you were at a month ago or 2 months ago or 3 months ago, it's always going to just get easier to get more and more people on board with your stuff. You're like it's building the snowball. It's like the Breath of the Wild where the snowball, you build it big enough to it knocks the wall down of the castle or whatever if you play the game.
Yeah.
Your shit just is going to get bigger because you're doing the right things. You're putting the time into it. It's never going to be worse than like the earliest stages. Every day is a step in this direction. You never go backwards if you stay, active with it.
Yeah, that's staying active with it. You're right. Yeah.
Don't pull a Kanye, don't start doing songs about Nazis and shit. As long as you don't get canceled.
What the hell is going on with that dude? He did a whole interview in this black KKK outfit the other day.
He
saw.
has a song called, I think, I Love Hitler or something.
What is he doing, dude? Like, he cannot possibly love Hitler.
Well,
Hitler would have had him killed.
It's either, I think.
Instantly for a lot of reasons.
I think he's either really struggling with his mental health or maybe he's just a horrible human being. But he wasn't like this 10 years ago, right? He wasn't like this when he first dropped the sophomore album or whatever the hell that was called.
And he was always like a cocky prick, but now he's like cocky and hallucinating.
Yeah, I mean, it could be an addiction problem. It could be mental health. It could. I don't know what it is, but I try not to worry about it too much.
Yeah.
I'm just like, well, fuck that guy.
Dude, when I see it, I just always, every time I see it, I'm like, God damn. I never would have expected, I never liked Kanye, but I never would have expected that of him. You know what I mean? Out of all the things I would have expected. But then again, no, actually, I was going to say with P. Diddy, I wouldn't have, but no. If you've known me since I was 14 years old, I've been talking shit about P. Diddy the entire fucking time. I've always hated that fucking guy,
really?
dude.
Huh.
I've always thought he looked like a pompous, fake fucking piece of shit, dude. Really, dude, just his smug fucking attitude and demeanor and I hope that with that whole trial, it comes to pass. They find out that he did have Biggie killed. I really do hope so because I want him to fry for that because it does seem like something he would have done.
Well, and I thought they were friends. I thought it was Tupac that he was like warring with. I thought
But-
Biggie was his homie.
But he would have killed Biggie because record sales always go up after the death of a rapper, and then P. Diddy and that company owned all the rights to the music, so they got the profits that Biggie
That's
would
some
have gotten.
diabolical shit if you do that to your best friend. In fact, I don't know if I want to be on this podcast anymore. I gotta go.
Remember, we got Jason Provencio right here on the one and only Kenyon's Meridian.
last video film before his untimely death, and now I have 1 million followers.
That'll be the clip that starts the Netflix documentary, and then the narrator will kick in. That was the last time Jason Provencio was ever seen alive in public.
But no, I'm serious. Like, if he did that just for greed and money, are you kidding? I thought they were supposed to be so tight and all this. I guess I haven't followed. Is that what they're saying in this trial? That may have
Mostly
been?
it's sexual allegations right now,
That's
but
what
I'm
I
just
thought it
hoping
was
that this
about.
leads to that. You know, I hope that this comes up somewhere. It's always been a rumor. Already,
I've never even heard that.
Suge
That's
Knight
funny.
and Puff Diddy were both rumored to have had hands in the deaths of Tupac and Biggie from both sides.
So Suge did the same thing to get record sales driven by the death of his guy that he has in his.
Tupac, yeah, or
Jesus.
Tupac's other stakeholders or whatever, whoever, yeah.
Huh. I never followed it close enough. I always thought it was like just this beef, West Coast, East Coast, and I'm better than you, you're better than me. Well, fuck you, no, fuck you back. Boom.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the other guy kills the other guy, and I never followed it close enough to really know much beyond that. That was
Yeah.
my understanding of it. Jesus, just self-sabotaging your guy, though, to sell more of his records post.
Humorously, yeah.
Yeah, fuck.
Yeah, it's
Huh.
it's just a conspiracy, but they're fun. They're fun. They're unsubstantiated. If there's ever evidence, it would. I wouldn't love that he did it.
Yeah.
I would hate to know for sure that part of me would be very sad because I do love some of Biggie's music too.
Of course.
But part of me would be satisfied because justice.
It would come out. You would be like, I was right about that. I called it.
And it would add to the concept, which is just the truth, that the elite are fucking poison. You get to a certain fucking level and you almost always, not always, but you almost always will just be a piece of shit.
Let's make a pinky swear that when we get huge, we're not going to fuck each other over.
Okay, fair
Okay.
enough. Fair enough.
Yes.
No, if I get big, I haven't come up with the exact percentage, but like if I can get up to making like 50,000 a year doing this, like I'll donate 20%. Like almost tithing, to charities and stuff. If I get up to, 150,000 a year doing this, I'll bump it up to 30%. If I get up to 10 million a year doing this, I'll be donating 60%. If I can get up to
Not
hundreds of
churches,
millions of
though.
years.
SPCA, dog, something.
Yeah, all sorts of stuff. I'll pick a different thing every
Charity of the
month or
month.
whatever.
There you
Exactly.
go.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be kind of cool.
Yeah, exactly. Like I don't have any desire to have big fucking yachts or those big expensive things. I just don't want to worry about my family starving.
Well, of course.
That's it.
And with these tariffs, you might have to.
I know.
Shit. Yeah. It's a legit concern.
Yep.
No, I get it, man. There's like people suffering right now, like bad.
There are,
and it's
yeah.
on both sides. It's the people that voted for him and the people that didn't vote for him. And the ones that didn't vote for him are like, you fuckers, like my stuff's more expensive. How dare you vote for that asshole? But those guys have to live with our hate towards them for voting for him and their own self-loathing because they're like, man, I shouldn't have voted for that cock. But damn it, why did I do that? Now I have hate coming from the left. I feel bad enough that I was duped, you know?
Yeah.
That's got to suck.
Yeah, I voted for Kanye West, so imagine how I feel.
Too soon. Is that him on your table over there? No.
Oh my
No,
god,
that guy's actually white. Jesus Christ.
that's a Sith Lord.
He's
sir.
a black. Okay. Well, similar.
Similar, yeah.
The black hat. I did see that though.
Yeah.
We wore the clan hat. I'm like, fuck.
I watched like 3 minutes of it, and I'm like,
I
nonsense.
Yeah, I
it's just
can't.
it's complete and utter nonsense.
It's like Dave Chappelle's skit where he's in the clan and he's blind, so he
It's
doesn't
like
know
real
he's
life.
black.
It
That's
really
what
is.
it is like.
Yeah,
Oh my
it is.
God.
It's like Kanye decided to do a Dave Chappelle skit, but he forgot that it was a fucking skit.
Yeah.
He's like, I forgot to say punked.
And he doesn't have the excuse that he's blind. He's not blind. What the fuck, Kanye? Come on.
Oh my god.
Oh, man.
Well, I think that's a good place to probably wrap it up.
Thanks, Kanye. You just ended this shit.
Yeah, we don't have anything to follow with you, bro. There's
That's where
nothing
we'll
truer
have
than
to
that.
end that one, yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on, bro.
Yeah, thanks for
Yeah.
having me back on. It's been several months, I'd say,
Yeah,
since we did our
several months,
last
yeah.
one. But it's good. We need to do it more often for sure.
Yeah.
Especially because I live right down the
Yeah,
street from
yeah.
you. I could have walked here. I could have limped here with my fucking gout toe.
Yeah. Well, we're busy, you know, you do your 2 articles and podcasts a day, you know, and I've been trying to get to 1 article in my podcast, and so
I was just saying that. In fact, I was talking about it. So I recorded my audio one before it came over and scheduled it on there. And I think I mentioned that we hadn't seen each other, and I was excited to see like the changes that you'd made. And when originally my daily one came from us doing one once a week or every couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And I said, but then we got busy, and then mine was hard to manage. He had a lot, I guess. It wasn't like some betrayal thing, you know. It was just like, we understand that as with families. I think I mentioned you have a kid graduating this week, and we're trying to fit in this small window today of getting in here to record this. So we have lives, we have families, we wish the best for each other, and it's cool to get to do the face to face. And I comment, I'm like, I live like a mile away. I feel like a dick for not being able to like see you like face to face for a while, but we understand it.
Yeah.
And we have goals, and we're very both driven entrepreneurial type spirits and stuff. So, but it is awesome to get to do it, and we should do this more often. I feel like I should be on here at least once a month or something. Like, as long as we're like not out of town or doing crazy. And congrats on the child graduating. Holy shit, that's like a big deal.
Yeah.
When's her actual graduation?
Yesterday. Yeah.
It's already happened.
Yeah, she just got on a plane this morning to head out of the country. I will not say where for her own safety.
Okay.
I've
like
got
a fun
that many
trip
enemies.
though, or like before college, like a fun trip, or
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's
Gotcha.
overseas. I'll tell you after.
Yeah,
the
no,
episode
that's
ends.
cool. That's
Yeah.
cool. Well, how exciting!
Yeah.
I want to travel overseas too. I'm a little worried about doing the in and out of America thing.
Yeah.
My sister-in-law just went on a cruise, and then to a cruise. So flew to New York, went on a cruise to Portugal, Spain, and the whole thing. And then I was like, I've been meaning to ask her since she's been back. Did they hassle you for looking ethnic? Because she's half Vietnamese and half American.
Yeah, I wonder if they did. Yeah.
I think I would have heard about it if they did. So I'm assuming she had a good experience. But we were going to go up to Canada, drive across the border, and I was like, maybe we should just do Yellowstone until shit settles down. What if they're like, well, your wife here looks like she wasn't born in this country.
Yeah.
She was born in Vietnam, you know, American father. But still, could they fuck her over because of that? We're not willing to roll the dice. So I think we're just going to go to Yellowstone.
Yeah, because people are questioning the natural born citizenship even and stuff. So it's like, it's all in question. And that's my thing. We probably shouldn't get into it too much, but you know, abuse of power is abuse of power, and I don't like it. The end.
For next time.
For next
later.
time.
Yes, we'll leave you with this, our valued Substack people. But yeah, cool. Thanks, man.